Hello, BookTube. Let's retreat into books again, shall we? let's do the mail. We've got a nice, healthy amount of mail for today. Who knows what's in these packages? Probably some duds, but maybe some highlights as well. And in either case, it gets all of us from thinking about hand washing and social distancing and the disastrous news of the day. Let's just retreat into books for a bit. Nothing wrong with that. Let's start with this first one. This first one is the only package in this whole pile that has a manila envelope. All the others are cardboard of one kind or another, including a whole array of boxes. So that could bode well. You never know. Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. All right, this was just dropped in an envelope. No pub sheet. But I've been waiting for this book to show up in English. So very, very happy to see it at long last. Some of you outside of the English-speaking world, outside of America, will have already know this book. This came out because it came out originally in 2015. And this is by Martin Caparrós. And it is Hunger, the Oldest Problem. And this was an international bestseller back when it came out. And its subject matter has only become more pronounced since then. Now it finally has an English language translation. I don't have a pub sheet, but let me tell you a little bit about it. There are now over 800 million starving people in the world. 800 million starving people in the world. An average of 25,000 men, women, and particularly children die from hunger every day. Yet we produce enough food to feed the entire population of the world 1.5 times over, and the percentage is more than that. The percentage is higher than that. We could feed the world 3 times over. America alone could feed the world 3 times over if the food were in any way managed. So why is it that world hunger remains such a deadly problem? In this crucial and inspiring work, famed journalist Martin Caparrós travels the world in search of an answer. His investigation brings him to eye-openingly diverse locations, including Africa and the Indian subcontinent, where he witnesses mass starvation firsthand, Chicago, where he documents the greed of corporate food distributors, and Buenos Aires, where he accompanies trash scavengers in search of something to eat. A massive international bestseller, this first ever English language edition has been updated by the author to consider whether conditions have improved, worsened, or simply relocated. And it's a great big thing. It's on hunger. I've already read this. I have not read it in English, but it is deeply, deeply impressive. So it's great that there's an English language version at last. I will get to this. I will read this. I don't have any kind of information on it, but I'm assuming that it's a March release, or maybe early April. So we start off our mail haul on a somber note, but still an impressive one. That's great. I'm still hoping for a little bit of science fiction or cozy mysteries somewhere along the line, but something that isn't quite so depressing as worldwide hunger. His book is also angering. There's not a single country that he goes to where you don't see the solution, where the solutions to the problem aren't self-evident. They don't require one of the world's greatest investigative journalists to uncover them. Instead, they are self-evident, and that's very angering. That can be very angering. It's such a simple thing. But anyway, we'll just have to. It's a somber way to start a mail haul. We'll hope that things pick up from here, because we want an escape from the news of the day, right? So, okay, all right. The escape from the news of the day is going to have to wait at least one more book. Oh my! No, this is not an escape from the world of news of the day. This is Jonathan Karl, and this is the finished copy of his Front Row at the Trump Show. He is the White House correspondent for ABC News, I think. Yes, for ABC News. This comes out at the end of March, the last day of March, and it's already outdated. All these books, all current, ripped from the headlines American journalistic books like this are already outdated. Because the country is in a national emergency. People are staying in their homes. When we have low there's a worldwide pandemic, and we have low numbers, incident numbers for America, only because we have no tests. If the population were tested, our numbers would skyrocket. And that's what this guy, Donald Trump, doesn't want. And again, this is not Trump derangement syndrome, nor is this inference of any kind. He has, as usual, like with the crime for which he was impeached, he has admitted it in front of cameras openly with seemingly no awareness of what he's saying. He has said he wants to keep infected passengers on a cruise ship there instead of getting them to the mainland and adequate medical attention, because once they come to America, they will make the numbers worse. And he likes the numbers where they are. Once again, this is not someone who hates Donald Trump making up stories about him. This is not fake news. It can't be fake news if it comes from his own mouth, and it does, as all his other confessions do. But this is already going to be outdated. A coronavirus won't even be mentioned in this book. Of course, this went to its press for the final copy months ago. So what have we got here? I'll still read it. I'll probably still review it. I'm reviewing a large number of Trump books. I view it as my penance for having ignored the Obama years. Jonathan Karl has known Donald Trump longer than any other White House reporter and virtually anybody on the White House staff, with the exception of his daughter Ivanka. His new book, Front Row at the Trump Show, tells a story only he can tell, from his first encounter with Donald Trump behind police lines at Trump Tower in the early 1990s, to the first minutes of the Trump presidency in an eerily empty White House, to the fallout from asking the questions that sealed the president's fate on impeachment. Trump has charmed Karl, lectured him in the Oval Office, and screamed profanities at him. And one thing this book will probably not make clear is that in order to stay with access to Donald Trump, despite all that stuff, you have to trade a little bit of integrity. Nobody comes anywhere near this guy without trading something valuable, something intangible and valuable. They have to pay, too. But you can't get close to him and stay close to him without losing something important. You can't lose it because you looked around one day and it was gone. You have to knowingly trade it. With extraordinary access to the campaign and at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Karl delivers essential new reporting and surprising highlights. The stories he tells and the scenes he describes will become defining moments in the Trump presidency. But you see, it's already outdated. We already know what the defining moment in the Trump presidency is. We already know what that is. We all thought it was impeachment, but it's not. It's not going to be that. We all know what it's going to be now. So all of this is, I will read this thing, but it has an inescapable air of yesterday's news, and I'm certainly not advising you to read it. Good God, that's the last thing that I wanted to bring up on this mail haul. Let's see if we can claw our way off this lee shore, shall we? Let's see if we can't find something a little bit. Oh, okay. All right, this is a novel. Oh my, what a pretty thing. Oh my. I think we might have seen an advance copy of this. Boy, I did not know that the finished copy would be so nice looking. Okay, yeah, I don't need the mother's bouillabaisse. I don't need anything like that. Just tell me about the book. I'm not a babe in the woods. I don't need my handheld. I don't need talking points at all. I know just what to do. When I get this thing in front of me on a dissecting table, I know just what to do. I don't need help. I imagine a lot of these bullet points and whatnots go out to people who don't know just what to do. But they feel a little silly when they come to me. So this is early April, and it's a novel. And it's a work in translation, so it adds to that huge list of works in translation that we have seen. And also, it's a beautifully designed paperback original, which has also been something of a trend that we've seen in 2020. More so, I think, than I've seen in previous years, where publishers are. This is who is this? This is Other Press, where publishers are just bringing out more paperbacks. That is a wonderful idea. It's long overdue. It's a wonderful idea, and I imagine it will catch on like gangbusters if COVID-19 causes a worldwide depression or a recession in the United States. If the economy tanks, then $35 hardcovers or books anyway are the definition of extravagance. You can get 10,000 books for free online delivered to your electronic device any time of the day or night, without going and put yourself in danger, without spending any kind of money. So I'm very glad to see this. And not only that, but this is a lovely trade paperback. So I don't know if we've seen this before. I'm going to act like we haven't. This is by Nicholas Mathieu. It's translated by William Rodemar, and it's called "And Their Children After Them." It's got an illustration, a color illustration on the cover, a color illustration on the back. It's got French flaps, and it's got decollages. So it's a, to my mind, some of you can't stand decollages, but I love them, and I love them even though it's my job to have to hunt through books to find things, and decollages make that harder. So maybe those of you who hate them and don't have to do that for a living might want to, I don't know, suck it up for a bit. They're aesthetically pleasing. Anyway, if what's his name in the Oval Office is bad for sharing on a mail haul, then surely scolding you is also bad for a mail. I will try to restrain myself. So what have we got here? Actually, who is this translated? Is this translated from the French? Yes, from the French. Okay. Oh, and while I'm in the innards, I might as well tell you. Okay, this came out in 2018, so that's not that long, considering, given the givens, that's not that long. And the in this particular case, which has not been the case in a lot of translated stuff that we've seen in 2020, the French translation is exactly the same. This is an exact translation of the title. Why translate the title worse? I have no idea, and yet we've seen that a couple of times. So let's see here. This won the Prix Goncourt, and is the first of the author's books to be translated into English. What have we got here? Got a glowing review from Kirkus. Got a starred review from Publishers Weekly. Fantastic. Let's see here. Okay, so this book spans from 1992 to 1998. One of my marriages to Deb did that. Hope this thing ends better. And follows a group of teenagers over 4 summers in the vividly imagined French town of Hélange, a town with echoes of America's Rust Belt and any number of deindustrialized towns across the world. It's a poignant coming-of-age tale that captures the distinct feeling of summer and the everyday realities of an obscure and isolated adolescence in a region left behind by global progress. Deindustrialized, I like that. The steel mill that roared at the crossroads of Hélange for 6 generations has closed. Its workers still suffer through unemployment and silicosis, and the abandoned blast furnaces echo only with the sound of their children pelting them with ball bearings. In the summer of 1992, a heat wave is cresting in the town. Weed is in annoyingly short supply. And a song by Seattle band Nirvana, a song, quote, that usually made you want to smash a guitar and set fire to your school, close quote, is spreading like a virus. I'm assuming that smells like Teen Spirit. 14-year-old Anthony Casati is bored out of his skull. Could try reading a book. Every single one of us on book 2. We read that part of any plot synopsis of any novel, and our first thing we think is, ooh, could try reading. You won't ever be bored if you read. But no. No. Lazing around the dull side of a local lake, Anthony and his cousin decide to steal a canoe and find out what's on the other side. At the famous nudist beach. This is turning out to be just like the marriage that I had stabbed from 1992 to 1998. How horrifying. If George Hamilton shows up, we've got a trifecta. The choices Anthony makes that day will shape everything that happens afterward, from an enduring crush to a mutually damaging collision between his fate and that of a boy named Hassine. Okay. The author was born in France in 1978, and his first novel was published in 2014. And this is his second novel, and he won the Prix Goncourt for it. So he is well and truly launched. That's fantastic. Okay, good for him, and good for us as well, because we have a bit of this Francophile phenom right here in a language that you all can read. Okay, fantastic, great. So did I say already when this? April 7th, right around the corner. April 7th. April's turning out to be a huge month, and so is June. but that's great. That's fantastic. In fact, that I might nudge that up on the list. Even though I still have a mountain of February books to read, I still might nudge it up on the list. Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. One of the things that we're going to see here, I imagine, from all these boxes, is that there's going to be a lot of finished copies. I bet in this mail haul, and this is one of them. And we saw this already. This also comes out on April 7th. Oh my God, April 7th. Oh my God. But this is by Gil Hornby, and it is Miss Austen. This is the finished copy, the lovely finished copy of Miss Austen. I don't know if you can make out the sweat on that leaf. And this is it's a novel about Cassandra Austen, Jane Austen's sister, reviled in all of history and for all time. In fact, in a book lover's version of Dante's Inferno, way at the bottom of the Inferno, or the top, however you're navigating in Dante's world, when you get to Satan, who is frozen up to his waist in ice, and who's permanently, he has 3 heads, 3 horrible fanged mouths that are constantly gnawing on 3 people. Now, at the heart of Dante's Inferno, those 3 people are traitors. The 3 people who are being gnawed by Satan himself, ripping their flesh and skin from their back, having it grow back and tearing it off again constantly. They're in his mouth constantly. Are history's 3 greatest traitors according to Dante, which is Brutus, Casca, and Judas. Judas is in the center mouth. And in the book world, in the book, or is it Cassius? It's probably Cassius, right? Did I say Casca? I'm thinking of the Eternal Mercenary, and I don't know if more than 2 of you who will know what that is. Barry Sadler's book, Casca, the Eternal Mercenary. Oh my! Because I mentioned skin growing back, and that's what did it. Isn't it amazing the way your mind works? No, your mind works perfectly. Isn't it weird how my mind works? I mentioned skin growing back and immediately thought of Casca, the Eternal Mercenary, a character from a series of military thriller novels from eons ago, he was cursed by Jesus to stay forever on earth until Jesus returns, so he can't die. Anyway, where were we? We were talking about Casca, the Eternal Mercenary. Oh, right. In the mouth of Satan, in the bookish world, in the bookish version of the Inferno, would be people who do what Cassandra Austen did, which is to destroy all of the letters and personal effects of her sister, Jane Austen. Only Satan would need a lot more mouths, because we have a lot of people who did that kind of thing, a lot of them, and they all deserve to roast in hell for eternity. It's not their business. It's not their job. I understand. It's one thing if the person they're doing it to has never been famous, has never attracted a reader, even one. But Cassandra Austen knew perfectly well that her sister was not just beloved, but iconic, immortal. And she did it anyway. So, 3 cheers for Max Broad is what I have to say. Oh, we have a little visitor. Probably somebody whose face you want to see a lot more than you want to see mine. Oh. Who are all those people, Bean? Who are they all? They love seeing you because you're so cute. That's why, because they love seeing you because you're so cute. Yes, you are. You're a sweet baby. Oh, you're a sweet baby. Yes, you are. Oh. Let's see here. So anyway, now I'm done with the preliminary rant. This was actually really good, despite the preliminary rant. Let me tell you a little bit about it for those who don't have any idea what I'm talking about. Readers the world over know the story of Jane Austen, but few know much, if anything, about the person who knew her best, Jane's beloved older sister, Cassandra. In this book, the author finally pulls back the curtain on the life of the lesser-known Austen and helps answer one of literature's most enduring mysteries. Why did Cassandra Austen burn a treasure trove of Jane Austen's letters after her famous siblings' untimely death? Now, Janeites, Janophiles, Jane Austen fans will usually say that she did it because she had some sort of pre-Victorian horror of the world prying into her sister's personal life. And you can believe that if you like. It was jealousy, pure jealousy. But let's see here. Brilliantly imagined and deeply faithful to its subject, Miss Austen opens in 1840 at the home of the Fowles of Kintbury, where Cassandra Austen is in a desperate search for the lost letters of her late sister Jane. By now an elderly spinster, Cassandra has spent her later years quietly but devotedly working to safeguard her famous sister's legacy. With their family friend's estate at Kintbury turning over to a new vicar, Cassandra must now hasten against the clock and elude the prying eyes of a troublesome housemaid to uncover Jane's trove of letters and decide whether to reveal their secrets to the world or commit their memories to the flames. And this has a blurb by Karen Jo Fowler, who did a book called the Jane Austen Book Club, which is amazing. Amazingly good. Just terrific. And which, I know I always say this, I know I always say the movie adaptation of any book is better than the book. I'm sticking to my story. The movie adaptation of the Jane Austen book club is great. It is absolutely great. You must see it. And do your best, if you can, to get the commentary. The disc, I don't know if DVDs are made anymore, but get the director's commentary was filmed, and it was part of the DVD for the Jane Austen book club. And it's amazing. The director talking, and the director and the writer talking about Jane Austen is amazing. But the movie is also great. Okay, that's and this also has a blurb by Claire Tomlin, who wrote a really well-regarded life of Jane Austen. I could have sworn this also had a blurb by Joe Baker, the author of Longbourn. I could have sworn that was true, but it could be that the Joe Baker blurb went to some other Jane Austen book. There are quite a few of them. There's another Jane Austen book club, Jane Austen Society, I think is what it's called. And there's the other Bennett sister, and a couple of others. So maybe one of the Austen years. Oh, what a book. Oh, man. That's forthcoming. I don't know if we've seen it on this channel. What a book, though. I couldn't put it down. But anyway, this is Miss Austen. This is a novel about Cassandra Austen, which got us to the heart of Dante's Inferno and also to the Eternal Mercenary novels. I don't know what to explain there. Let's see here. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, this is another work in translation. And it's another novel, and I think we've already seen it. This is, aren't you cool? You were born in 1972 as well? Yeah? Okay, good for you. Yeah. Nice soul patch. Anywho. Okay, this is out any day. This is out on March the 24th. This is the finished copy of Like Flies from Afar by Kay Ferrari. Thinks you're a little dumb to be reading novels. That's what he tends to think. But he wrote one. So this is translated by Adrian Nathan West. In the 1990s, an aspiring young Argentinian writer trying to find work in Florida was pulled over for making an illegal U-turn. He and his wife were undocumented, and shortly after, they were both deported. This winter, after more than 2 decades, Enrique Ferrari, now a prize-winning crime novelist whose work has been published on 3 continents, will be making a return of sorts to the United States with the release of Like Flies from Afar, his first book to be published here. And I believe I mentioned at the time that we got if we got the advance copy of this, I might have mentioned that if you are pulled over as an illegal immigrant from Argentina in Florida searching for work, it's entirely proper that you be deported. Okay, I know I'm not any kind of foaming at the mouth alt-right dude bro YouTuber, but nevertheless, if you enter the country illegally to find work, well, then you cannot complain, much less write a book or, for instance, God forbid, build a literary career on complaining about having been turned out of that country by its law enforcement. Apart from anything else, what does the opposite assertion say to all the people who go through the proper channels to immigrate to a country? What does it say to them? Maybe that is what it says to them. I don't know. I haven't read this book. Deportation from the United States was not the only detour on Ferrari's rather unorthodox path to a career in the world of international letters. Okay. All right. Well, it was a detour because you broke the law. Okay. Let's not talk about it like it's egregiously aggressive policing or any kind of racism. Let's not talk about it like it. Well, anyway, you're free to talk about it any way you like. He got his first work over the transom in Argentina by claiming it was the translated writings of an American noir writer named Hank McFerrar. Great story, also fraud. He currently works as a janitor in the Buenos Aires subway system. As all this might suggest, I wonder if he actually does his work. Considering the 2 stories that I know about him, I wonder if he actually shows up. Or does he have somebody else punch the clock for him so that he can draw his wages while staying at home? Maybe figuring, only fools would clean a subway station. Or how's anybody going to know if it's not clean? As all this might suggest, Like Flies from Afar feels very much like something from outside the literary establishment. Not particularly, no. In 2020? For someone to lie and fraud and cheat and whine his way to a book deal? That doesn't sound outside of the norm at all for the literary world. This is why I largely avoid the literary world. This book is a sharp-edged, subversive, jolt-delivering, raucous, cynical, bleakly funny book. One hard-boiled enough to breathe some fresh life into that old noir cliche. Okay, all right. James Salas says that it should come, quote, not with blurbs, but with a hazardous material warning sign. Okay. All right. Well, it's right around the corner, so it goes right on the top of the list here, regardless of anything we may have encountered in that, I admit, rather rocky introduction to the book. It goes right on top of the list here because it could be good. Right? Until we dip in, we don't know. It could be good. The yardsticks by which we usually judge whether or not it's likely that a work of literature will be good here have dire things to say. Usually you want to talk about the work's antecedents, its literary antecedents. Usually you want to talk about how widely and aggressively and absorbently the author has read the works of other people. And the impression I get here is that this author thinks that that sort of preparation is for fools. So we will see. We will see. I read a book, was it last year? By an American author who was not cleaning subways in Buenos Aires, but incarcerated for drug dealing. I think the book was called Cherry. Fairly certain it was called Cherry. It was a debut book. A lot of ivory tower, cloistered, slightly nerdish, push up the glasses book critics got word of the author's biography and hyperventilated in praise for the book in a way that I am 100% sure they would not have done had they not known that it was a convict who was writing this novel. 100% sure that if they hadn't known that, they would have done their usual thing to it. Well, I did my usual thing to it. But all the others, oh no, this is the ultimate in own voices. This is totally raw. So anyway, how did I get on this? Did I get here from the Eternal Mercenary? I don't know. Poor Mark Richardson. He suffers through these mail hauls in case something of interest pops up for his library. And then in the middle of this one, suddenly, what? The Eternal Mercenary, ooh! And now I go right back to being boring again. Oh, man. That's gotta stink. All right, so this next one is April 7th as well. This is a finished copy. This is a police thriller. It's by Kay Hooper, and it's called Hidden Salem. This is a Bishop Special Crimes Unit novel. And in it, this is a return with another hair-raising novel starring Noah Bishop and his team of mind-reading FBI agents. In Hidden Salem, the members of the Special Crimes Unit band together to solve yet another string of mystery murders with supernatural circumstances, but this time in perhaps the most eerie location of all, the small town of Salem. Salem is not eerie. It's boring. Salem is unlike any place SCU agents Geneva Rayner and Grayson Sheridan have ever encountered. People are vanishing. Crows seem to follow them around every corner, watching and waiting. Evidence of satanic activity is everywhere. Well, if you've been on the main street in Salem and seen the overpricing in the tchotchke shops, you will agree that evidence of satanic activity is everywhere. And it all leads back to 5 families, the same families who founded the town hundreds of years ago and seem to have immeasurable influence over its people. Okay. So, a supernatural police procedural novel that is also, I don't think I'm going out on a limb here, extremely dumb. so could still be fun. Could still be absolutely fun. It bothers me just a little. When people trivialize what happened in Salem. It was grotesque, and people died. But it's long ago. Only Deb and I were actually there. So let's see here. Let's see what this next one is. It's a finished copy of something. Oh no. Oh my. Okay. All right. Oh, these might all be from Princeton. Actually, it kind of looks to me like these are all going to be. This is from Princeton University Press. And this came out on February 11th, so it's a little late getting to me. Since we've already gone through and survived pretty much the worst Friday the 13th in any of our lives. So now Friday the 13th certainly lived up to its billing, and now we're well past that. So this is getting me a little late. And it is by John Cottingham, and it is called In Search of the Soul, a philosophical essay. Short. Can't be that philosophical. The concept of the soul has been a recurring area of inquiry since ancient times, not just by theologians, but also a general concern central to our thinking about what it means to be human. What do we mean when we talk about finding our soulmate or doing some soul searching? That's a rhetorical question, of course, I know, but what we mean by soulmate is someone who's compatible with us mentally, physically, economically, socially, in terms of a long-distance sexual and marriage relationship. And what we mean by soul searching is deep and comparatively objective thinking about some object. We're not talking about a soul in either case. But anyway, are these empty phrases, or does the soul still hold real value for us today? It's neither. It's none of the above. Okay, and they're not empty phrases. They of course mean something, but they don't have anything to do with the soul. It's just a word. That's all. Those aren't theological terms. Those soul searching or finding a soulmate. From Socrates to Darwin to Austen, that's Saint Augustine to you, bub. Okay, if you were called a saint someday, I'd give the title to you. All right. And Freud, In Search of the Soul, takes readers on a concise, accessible journey into the origins of the soul in Western philosophy and culture, and examines how the idea has developed throughout history to the present. Touching on literature, music, art, and theology, John Cottingham illustrates the value of the concept of the soul and how it attunes us to the importance of meaning and value, experience, and growth. Your mind does all of that. You don't need a concept of a soul to do any of that. And when you lug in a concept of a soul, you lug in a lot of other stuff too. You can't just say a deeper spiritual perception of any of those things is the thing that separates the term soul from the term mind without taking in all the rest of it too. And all the rest of it is bad. The author makes a case for how the soul exerts a powerful force on all of us, and claims that a better understanding of the soul might help us to find meaning. And the author is the Professor Emeritus of Philosophy at the University of Reading. Okay, he's written other books called How to Believe, The Spiritual Dimension, and On the Meaning of Life. And this is In Search of the Soul. And it came out already, so I obviously have to bump it right to the head of the list. I don't want anybody at Princeton to think they wasted their time sending it to me. We'll see what the author says. I have no idea. I don't know anything about him. I know everything there is to know about the soul because I know that it doesn't exist. And you know how I know that? You know how I know that? Because the things that exist are the things that can be shown to exist. If you claim something exists and you can't show it to exist, it doesn't exist. You're just making a claim. And there is no proof whatsoever for a soul of any kind. There is no proof, and there never has been, that you are inhabited by some mimeographed Casper the Friendly Ghost that isn't attached to you in any physical reality and that doesn't care about your physical reality. So if you get shot dead, it just wanders on its merry way somewhere else with your memories, all of your tastes, maybe even your personal appearance intact, and that thing goes to some other dimension. There is no evidence for anything like that at all. None whatsoever. And therefore, it doesn't exist. And you can say, well, that's just because you don't believe. Well, you don't believe either. Okay? And a million things. You don't believe either. If I tell you that there are fairies at the bottom of your garden, you will say, no, I garden in all 4 seasons. I'm out there every day, and there aren't any. And I say to you, well, here's the explanation. Here's the proof. This, that, and the other thing, these overturned empty nutshells or whatnot. And you say, no, I've been out in the garden. I've seen what does that, the animals that do that, the natural forces that do that. That's crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. And you can't give me anything that I could take to anybody and have them confirm. Therefore, I'm saying that you're wrong when you say there are fairies at the bottom of the garden. There aren't any. Why are you saying that? About them, or about the Loch Ness Monster, or about Thor? Why are you saying that? Because the other person can't show it to you. That's why. That's why you're saying it. Because it's not because you don't care, because you care one way or another. It's not because you have some sort of anti-fairy at the bottom of the garden bias. It's that they can't show it to you. And that it doesn't even have to apply to outlandish things at all. If you have a neighbor who has a 1-room flat up the road, and you know perfectly well they haven't worked in a long time, they're on the state dole, and that neighbor tells you that a little bit further up the road they have a Cadillac, a mint condition vintage Cadillac that they just upkeep in a garage. They don't drive it around because it's expensive and they don't want it to get damaged, but they do have one. If you say, well, that's great, that's fantastic, I'd love you to show it to me sometime, and they don't ever do that, and maybe you walk up the street and you see that there is no garage, you're just not going to believe them. You might not confront them the way I'm confronting you right now, but you won't believe them. And the reason why you won't is because all the evidence points towards it not being true, and they can't show it to you. Same thing. Same thing here. So this is a philosophical essay about a rhetorical construct, not a religious construct, nor anything that anyone is in any kind of doubt about. You can assert all that you want, but you don't have a mimeograph. You don't have a ghost inside you that survives your brain being pithed or your heart stopping. You don't have anything like that inside you. And that's what I meant about hauling in all the muck that comes along with this concept. Why not just say your imagination does all of those things in the pub sheet, as opposed to saying your soul must do it? Because one of the things that is inextricable from the concept of a soul is exactly that. That you're some sort of a ghost wearing a body, and that is not true. And believing that you are, believing that that is true, can lead to a lot of mistakes in your life. It can lead to a lot of suffering. What happens if some charlatan comes along and tells you that according to X, Y, or Z calculation that they have made, not you, that immortal part of you is not just going to wander off to some other dimension, but suffer there forever, unless you make with the money. Unless you cough over a little money or do what I want you to do. That it can lead to real world harm, is what I'm saying, to have that concept. To have a concept that this is just some sort of meat shop dress rehearsal for your real life, which lasts forever. And you get that when you bring in the concept of a soul. So better to leave it out. Better just say your imagination is what allows you to sit and ponder or plumb the beauty of a sunset or whatever. Not your soul. But anyway, let's move on, shall we? Let's see if this next one is. These are probably all going to be from Princeton. They're probably all going to be finished copies. Princeton is very nice to send these. Oh, great. Okay, yes, this is a finished copy, and we've seen this before. Great. This is probably real soon. Oh no, mid-April. Great. Oh, it's lovely. Oh my. Oh, great. Okay, this is a collection of poetry. By Stephanie Burt. This is after Callimachus, and it's been given a sort of a classical design. Let's see here. Callimachus transformed the way poetry was written and appreciated, but you've probably never heard of him. In After Callimachus, esteemed poet and critic Stephanie Burt translates and adapts the work, spirit, and letter of Callimachus to today's poetry readers. Rather than accurate scholarly translations, Burt adapts, cuts, and expands upon Callimachus' surviving poems so as to modernize them. So this is impinges directly on the questions about translation that we've been talking about in the March of the Penguins. My tour through my Penguin Classic Wall has dealt almost exclusively, in fact exclusively, with translated literature so far. So we've been talking about the two forks of the translator's task. On the one hand, you can make your translation as literally accurate to the source material as possible, regardless of how readable the end product ends up being because of that. On the other hand, you can take the spirit, as this pub sheet puts it, the spirit of the original, and try and literally translate that, mutatis mutandis, to your own world and culture. Or you can try to forge some middle way, go some middle path there, and we have seen translators do both and try and go in the middle, and it looks like I haven't read it, but it looks like that Stephanie Burt is going to try the middle. Let's pick an example here. This is a fragment from fragment 65 from book 3 of the Asia. Nobody wants to talk about Eokia or about menstruation, but really we should. The lovely and ample fountain in Argos named Purity belongs to the city. Domestic workers clean themselves there, so men say the appellation must be a long-running joke. Those men are mean and should not hold positions of authority. The fountain and its purpose are pure and good. Okay, nothing contemporary there except maybe the rhythm. Oh my, okay, I think this is going to be fascinating. Okay, well the problem with getting all of these finished copies is that I want to put them all at the front of the list, and they can't all go there. No, but believe it or not, we are getting near the end here. We have 2 more to go, and then we'll be done. What is this next one? Oh, Oh my. All right, this is April 7th. I don't think we ever saw this. This is by Kevin Peter Hand. And this is Alien Oceans, the search for life in the depths of space. Popular science, gotta love it. Beneath the frozen crusts of several of the small ice-covered moons of Jupiter and Saturn lurk vast oceans that may hold the key to extraterrestrial biology. If you haven't studied up on those, that is absolutely true. Vast, dark oceans that are swept by hard radiation. Is there any chance of photosynthesis? Is there any chance that something could live there without photosynthesis? Are those oceans warmed in their darkest depths by any kind of volcanic activity? Could these moons be the best place to look for life beyond Earth? I would think so. Either there or subterranean on Mars. I would think so. Subterranean in the equatorial, in the polar regions of Mars. Either there, not on the surface, because Mars is also bombarded by radiation, but below the surface in the polar regions, or under the sea, under those ice caps, under those, the surfaces are frozen over, but they have oceans as big as ours. Anyway, in this book, the author, one of NASA's scientists leading efforts to land a spacecraft on the surface of Europa, which is one of those moons, takes readers from the depths of our planet's oceans to the moons of the outer solar system in search of the answer. How I wish we could take somebody like this could take us there literally. Wouldn't that be awesome? Hand's pioneering research, recounted here in gripping yet accessible detail, has taken him around the world on expeditions of scientific discovery. In Alien Oceans, he shows us how this exploration is informing our understanding of the potential habitability of Saturn and Jupiter's icy moons, drawing on lessons we've learned about the origins of life on our own planet to consider how life could arise on distant worlds. And that is, well, of course, it's the only thing we have to go on, but we have found life forms in the depths of Earth's oceans that don't require sunlight. They're not part of the solar cycle at all. They don't require it in any way. They have grown, developed, mutated, evolved, far from any concept that there is a star in the sky. And you can see right away how that might be applicable to an ocean that has been dark and without sunlight forever. Oh boy. Okay, all right. This is mid-April, but I want to do it right now. Oh, no. All right. We'll do this next one, and then we'll be done. This is the last one. Oh. Oh no. All right. This is also Princeton. We've seen some of these before. We've seen these little books before that they make. This one is a little apropos, considering how stressed we all are. This is by Vincent Obsopoyas. It's translated, edited, and introduced by Michael Fontaine, and it is How to Drink, a classical guide to the art of imbibing. And once upon a time, possibly in a path not taken, Frida and I would be at the little old farmhouse right about now, and there would be quite a bit of the art of imbibing going on. But it just didn't seem wise to do at all. It just traveling is one of the things that you're being explicitly advised not to do. Anyway, I have been told that there will be a store of wine waiting for us when the coast is clear, and that is a wonderful thing to be told. This is the first proper English translation of this 1536 manuscript, The Art of Drinking, De Arte Bibendi. The author was a Renaissance humanist and neoclassical poet who grew up in the winelands of 16th century Germany. There he witnessed a new culture of binging, hazing, peer pressure, and competitive drinking. Alarmed and inspired by the Roman poet Ovid's The Art of Love, he wrote The Art of Drinking, a manual for drinking with pleasure and discrimination. We have lots of pleasure drinking up at the old farmhouse in Vermont, as you know, if you've seen any of our epic live streams, but not a whole lot of discrimination. Okay, great. Fantastic. So this comes out in the mid-April. There's another in this series. They might have a list of them in this thing. We've seen a lot of them. There have been a lot of these. We've seen a couple on this channel. How to think about war, how to be a friend, how to win an election, how to run a country. What was the one? There was one, it's in the other room, on how to be a bad emperor. How to be a bad emperor, which was selections from Suetonius. And this is How to Drink, a classical guide to the art of imbibing. Okay. All right, well, there you go. That does it. That is our mail haul for today, the last mail haul of the week. So we have Alien Oceans by a guy who knows it all. We have After Callimachus. An author decides to do a sort of freewheeling, inspired by but not literal translation and adaptation of the poems of Callimachus. In Search of the Soul Poor author's book sparked a diatribe on this channel, but the book may be good. Hidden Salem by Kay Hooper, a police procedural that's supernatural and it's set in Salem. We have Miss Austen by Gil Hornby. We have And Their Children After Them, the English language translation of this author's Goncourt Prize-winning novel. We have Front Row at the Trump Show by Jonathan Karl, who's been reporting on the Trump administration since day one, since long before day one. We have Hunger, the Oldest Problem, in an English translation, one of many English translations in this mail haul alone. We have Like Flies from Afar, a slim novel in translation, and we have How to Drink, a Renaissance text, also in translation. So half this mail haul, this is translation, this is translation, this is translation, this is translation, and Their Children After Them. The Callimachus is translation. That's, half the mail haul is translated work. That's fantastic. That's wonderful. So there you go. That's an extra long mail haul. Sorry for the length, but I like talking to you, and I'm hoping that these mail hauls are serving to distract you in some way from the awful reality that is tightening all around us. I'm hoping. That's my justification anyway. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.